Right, Jade, what is your fifth and final tip,
Okay,
please?
so this is a different one, because it's not related to a kind of individual teaching practice, but something that I think is super important and I'm super passionate about, and that is the power of teachers reading research. So when we, I guess, as a school actually first started our journey towards evidence-informed teaching and learning, as a leader of teaching and learning, I saw it as my role to read everything and then kind of distill that, whether that be in a CPD session or I used to do a really long teaching and learning newsletter, which no one ever read, that kind of thing. And so now, whilst I still see it important that actually teachers are time poor and there's very few of us who want to go home at night and read research papers. I mean, I do, but there's not that many of us that want to do that. So I still think it's important that we are distilling research for teachers, but also I think equally is important is that we're giving teachers time to read research for themselves. I think it leads to a much better understanding of evidence-informed practice if you've read something for yourself, a much bigger commitment to evidence-informed practice if you've read research for yourself. It promotes the idea that reading research is the norm. We've got an amazing culture in my school now where we've got teachers who regularly read research, who share blogs. I'll go through some of the ways that we've kind of made sure that teachers can read research, but just a really great culture of, a middle leader came to me the other day and said, can I set up a middle leaders research group where we're going to read research about middle leadership and how best to lead quality assurance in your department or how best to lead CPD in your department. So we've got that kind of culture now. And I think you only get that when you start reading research. We will all have, at some point in our career, not have been that interested or not have engaged that much with evidence-informed teaching and learning and with evidence, with research. And you get that little spark, don't you? And you read one thing, and you want to read another thing, and you want to read another thing. So I think that initial engagement makes that more likely to happen. And then actually just kind of helping me, it means that you're not always standing up and saying, well, the research shows or the research says, and actually teachers are getting that from another voice, and it gives much better credibility to what you're then saying. So I'll try and give some practical ways, because that all sounds like amazing, doesn't it? But I'll try and give some practical ways that we can do that. So in my school, first of all, we've got a teaching and learning research group. Now that's a voluntary group, and we meet once every half term. And we read a piece of research, and I send out some questions in advance. And actually, I think that's really important because it gives teachers confidence that they feel prepared, especially when you're starting off. It's quite daunting to read, quite heavy articles sometimes. So publish questions in advance, and then we meet and we discuss that as a group, and we talk about, how is that going to impact our teaching? And then this year, we also have done that with pastoral research group. And that isn't led by me, it's led by some of our pastoral leaders, and they meet and read research regarding pastoral issues. And then, like I said, from September we'll have our middle leadership one starting as well, which will be great. We do what I call flexi inset sessions at my school. So 2 of our inset days every year are disaggregated, and you accrue the 10 hours during the school year, and you can have those 2 extra days off. And so one of the things that you can do to accrue those hours is to attend a research session, where it's very much like the teaching and learning group, but you're just accruing your hours. So you come, you read your piece of research, you discuss it, and you bank an hour. And we also, for those hours, allow teachers to do independent reading as well. So I publish a reading list linked to our teaching and learning priorities. We've got a really good CPD library, which I advertise with, some information about what you might read if you're interested in a certain area of pedagogy. But then also staff can contact me and say, I really want to know about, interleaving in maths or homework, effective homework, and then I can suggest some reading that they can do. So we do all those things, and then we also do a teaching and learning inquiry group, and again that's voluntary, and that is where we normally focus on one aspect of teaching and learning, and it's normally something that we've identified that we want to focus on as a whole school. So last year, the year that's just finished, we looked at questioning and checking for understanding, because we noticed that needed to be a whole school priority for us from September. So basically, I do a reading list, and each member reads a piece of research on the reading list, and then we meet in the first meeting, all discuss our findings, share the strategies that were kind of advocated by the literature that we've read. You choose 2 or 3 things you're going to trial in your teaching over the year, and then we meet kind of regularly to evaluate that, say how it's going, and then at the end of the year we produce a little guide. So that's really nice, because next year when I introduce questioning as a whole school priority, we've got 25 members of staff who already have been focusing on that for a year, but also we've we've trialled things in our own context, in our own subjects, with our own pupils. So we've kind of put together a best practice guide. That's it.
Wow. That's brilliant. Okay, I love this. I love the fact how you structure this, and I love the fact that you make time for it. That feels like the most important component of this. I like that incentive as well to bank your hours. Just a couple of questions here. How do you choose which papers to kind of direct staff towards? Do you have any kind of criteria that you use there?
No, it's normally stuff that I have read that I think links in really well with something that we're focusing on in school. So, for example, when we've looked at retrieval practice in the past, it might have been the Yang paper or the Agarwal paper on Bloom's taxonomy showing that we need higher order retrieval practice. It's not always research papers. It might be parts of like the Great Teacher Toolkit or papers like putting students on the path to guided learning, where it's not necessarily a research paper, but it's a kind of a journal article. So, no, I just tried to find things that I've read and found useful, and because we have like a CPD curriculum where we try to focus most of our CPD on our teaching and learning priorities, so that we haven't got loads of people focusing on loads of different stuff. We're kind of driving towards these things that we've identified as being most important. I basically suggest, I don't know, a number of things under each heading, 5 or 6 things under each priority, where if you are working on retrieval practice or challenge or literacy, these are the things that would be most useful to you to read.
Got it. I'm going to ask you one more question, and I'll give you a bit of time to think about it whilst I just chat away for a second. I'm going to ask you to pick out a couple of papers that have had the biggest impact for some of your staff that you've suggested. The reason I ask this is one thing I wanted to do with Tips for Teachers, and I'm really pleased this is happening, is that people are sending around the videos of the tips. So, for example, Adam Boxer with his mini whiteboards, or recently Chris Such on literacy. And that can be quite a nice thing. You know, watch a 5-minute video, 7-minute video on this, and then let's discuss that in a departmental meeting. Because often you'll get people who've distilled the research into hopefully quite an accessible way. So I like video as a medium alongside audio and alongside reading as well, as a way to share this research around. But yeah, anything spring to mind in terms of kind of big hitters, big impacts?
In terms of kind of more general things, not linked to a specific aspect of teaching, I would definitely recommend the Great Teacher Toolkit. I think that's really extensive in the amount that it covers.
Yes.
I would say, in terms of like the cog size stuff, Dunlofsky's 2013 paper. And then there's actually been a recent one, hasn't there, by Hattie, where he's kind of looked into more depth about the findings. So that's really interesting kind of addition to that. Putting students on the path to guided learning is a really nice accessible one about explicit instruction. And then the longer paper to that, which is what is the title of it? It's got out of my head. Why discovering learning harms learning. I can't believe I can't remember it, because I must have read it.
Yeah, I know the one you mean.
But that one is really nice.
Minimal guided instruction one. I know the one you mean.
Why minimally guided instruction harms learning, I think is what it is.
Yeah.
And then in terms of we've looked at cognitive load and the cognitive load theory research that teachers really need to understand. You know, the kind of New South Wales, I think it is, green booklet is really good. So I think there's some general things. Rosenchan's principles is obviously very general, has lots of implications for lots of areas of teaching and learning. And then I think you've got to look at your individual priorities, and there's lots of papers that would link specifically to each one of them.
Got it. Fantastic.